Welcome into the Solo Shot Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Dom Manna. Happy Solo Shot Saturday, everyone. And this Solo Shot Saturday was the end of a historic streak. The streak has been broken for over 2 years now. Since Adley Rutschman was called up, his biggest claim to fame, other than being a switch-hitting stud catcher who hit home runs from both sides of the plate in the home run derby last year, he went out there every single series, 2 games or more, and the Orioles never got swept. 106 straight series. Unbelievable streak. And they go into Busch Stadium. I just talked about last week the St. Louis Blues and how there's just not a lot of hope right now for St. Louis baseball, and that I think they should blow it up before it gets too late and they can't get anything for these guys. And the St. Louis Cardinals at Busch Stadium sweep the Baltimore Orioles in 3 games. Now, one of them was a rained out continuation from the night before. So it wasn't a typical 3-game series in some ways, but the Cardinals played good baseball against a really good baseball team in the Baltimore Orioles, and they got the win. So the Orioles 106 series is where their streak ends. Heck of a start for Adley Rutschman and the O's, especially when Brandon Hyde and the boys in his first couple seasons were losing 100 games. So really awesome to see that consistency. I will like to see how the adversity now hits the O's as they have this under their belt. It's good that this happened in May and not that this is happening in September when they were pushing for a playoff spot. But the Orioles have a lot to learn from this. They're still a very young team with a ton of talent. Gunnar Henderson, who's over to my left, just unbelievable player. 17 home runs already on the young season. Just a real stud. They have a lot to be hopeful for. And the Cardinals preserve their record. The 1940s Gas House Gang St. Louis Cardinals. They had a streak of 124 straight series, 2 games or more without being swept. So the Cardinals preserved history at Busch Stadium and did so in a really amazing fashion because the Cardinals had not swept an opponent since they swept the Marlins in July of last year. Yes, the Marlins, a team that I said their season is over now. The Cardinals have had a really rough go of things the last 2 years, and this is a huge moment for them and their fans, doing it at Busch Stadium, doing it to protect their team's MLB record. So kudos to both sets of birds for this streak being broken. It was really cool to follow it, and I think it's poetic the way that it ended. Now, a team that a lot of people are sounding the alarms on this week is the Texas Rangers. They are 2-8 in their last handful of games. Their pitching has been well below league average, but I still believe. I think that this Rangers team will rally. I picked them to win this division, and while Seattle has been extremely impressive and playing amazing baseball, I still do think the Texas Rangers, when they get back to full strength, can and will overtake this division again. But so many people are focused on, I think, the wrong details with this team. Everyone was expecting Wyatt Langford to come in and be a 30-30 guy right away, and he's been sent down to the minor leagues. He's dealt with a little bit of injury so far in his young major league career. Evan Carter, who's my pick for American League Rookie of the Year, has had a good start to the season, but not quite as magical as he was at the end of last year. And the pitching staff. The pitching staff is not where it needs to be. Nathan Eovaldi is currently on the IL with a groin strain. Max Scherzer, Hall of Fame pitcher, who pitched some big innings for the Rangers last year, He is still on the mend. They were expecting him to be back in May. He had a setback and got put on the 60-day IL. So we're not going to see him till later this summer. And everyone's favorite pitching prospect, Jack Leiter, son of Al Leiter, came up to the big leagues, and in his big league debut had the third highest ERA ever recorded. So there's been a lot of negativity with the pitching staff, and this pitching staff was never going to be top of the league. It just didn't have that in the range of outcomes. They were hoping to be around the middle of the pack with the pitching. But the reason I believe in this Rangers team is the lineup. And the lineup has the majority of guys who were a part of the resurgence in that World Series run, that inaugural World Series run, first in franchise history last season. And while guys like Jonah Heim and Nathaniel Lowe have been banged up, I think when you have Marcus Semien, who I'm a huge fan of, you have Corey Seager, who is a stud, Adolis Garcia just hits bombs, and you have a young player with plate discipline and Evan Carter. It's a recipe for success. And I think as the season goes on and your corner infielders get healthy, Josh Young on the mend, Nathaniel Lowe getting back into the swing of things, Jonah Heim, I believe that this Rangers team will be able to hit their way back right into the top of the standings. And I do think as the pitching staff gets healthier, they get Nathan Eovaldi back, Max Scherzer down the road. They make a trade at the deadline because this team is aggressive. They do want to win. I think that this team will be just fine. Don't judge them right now because in May, between injuries and bad results, they've been having to start guys like Jose Urena out of the rotation, a guy who used to start opening day for the Marlins when they were considered the worst team in baseball, and he would have a 5 ERA and people wouldn't care. That's a guy who's starting for the Texas Rangers right now. So don't judge the Texas Rangers full season for what they're looking like right now in this stretch in May. The Rangers will rally. Now, more positive note, a guy who's gotten a lot of really awesome posts, but I don't think gets talked about enough in the game today. And I was talking about this with a few of my buddies actually the other night, that the approach in the game has changed so much, whether it be on the pitcher's mound or on in the batter's box. The approach has just changed so much over the years in baseball, where launch angle and going for extra base hits and home runs is the norm, and pure slap ball contact hitters, high average guys have become kind of extinct. So I think that it is just amazing that we have a guy right now in Luis Arraez who has truly been a unicorn for his era so far in 1,000 career plate appearances, 1947 or later, so post-integration. The only players with a higher batting average in 1,000 or more plate appearances than Luis Arraez are Mr. Padre Tony Gwynn and two Hall of Famers, Rod Carew and Wade Boggs, are 0.001 points ahead of Luis Arraez, 327 career average through 1,000 plate appearances. Other guys that are on that list, Kirby Puckett, 318, Vladimir Guerrero Sr., 318, and Roberto Clemente, 317. These are true legends of the game. And did the majority of those guys win MVPs and World Series and make the Hall of Fame? Absolutely. Does Luis Arraez, with his pitiful defense, have a chance to win an MVP in this league's environment? No. But he's already a back-to-back batting champion. And I do believe as Luis Arraez continues down this road of giving truly elite contact numbers in an era where nobody is hitting 300 every year, and the number of 300 batters is going way down, Luis Arraez is going to stick out like a sore thumb. He's going to be noticed, and I'm want us all to appreciate him more than we are right now, because he's on the West Coast now. He's in the biggest market he's ever played in, and San Diego is not a huge market. And he's playing in a lineup with the likes of Manny Machado, with the likes of Fernando Tatis, and they just needed a guy like that to get on base, turn those solo shots into 2-run homers over in San Diego. And he's been such a nice piece and such a breath of fresh air for not just the game of baseball, but for Padres fans who watched Tony Gwynn swing it out there for decades. I am just absolutely just floored watching this guy play. And I understand chicks dig the long ball. There's more exciting players in the sport that make crazy defensive plays or steal bases or have crazy speed. Luis Ariz has one tool and he kills it. It is an elite contact tool. And he might not hit 30 bombs. He might not steal 20 bags. He might not play gold glove defense. But Luis Ariz in the batter's box, to me, is must-see baseball and is so refreshing in a game where you're seeing guys strike out 300 times in a season. Luis Ariz, we appreciate you. You're on a Hall of Fame trajectory. Keep raking. Now, here at the Solo Shot Sports Podcast, we like to throw it back down the third base line to this day in baseball history. And there was actually a ton of milestones actually for May 25th in baseball. Babe Ruth hit the final 3 home runs, 712, 713, and 714 of his career on this date. So that was really cool to see. Ferguson Jenkins, one of the most overlooked pitchers in the history of the game, recorded his 3,000th strikeout on this date. Carl Yastrzemski, a player that's very close to my heart, became the 4th player in Major League history to appear in 3,000 career games. And Randy Johnson was traded to the Seattle Mariners for star pitcher Mark Langston in a trade with the Montreal Expos. So there was all those amazing things. But the thing that stuck out to me and the player that I wanted to highlight today is the fact that there's a Hall of Fame reliever who's looked at as one of the game's best. And I don't know how many people have really looked into his baseball reference page and realized that he was actually a pretty dang good starting pitcher in his career as well. And I'm talking about none other than Dennis Eckersley Eck, who on this date in 1975 won his first career game. Now, you'd say wins for relievers don't really matter. Well, he was a starting pitcher at the time. And in Dennis Eckersley's long vaulted career, where he pitched in 24 seasons, he started games in about half of those seasons. So about 12 years he was a starter. And he won 197 career games. We're talking about a pitcher's landscape now where swing and miss and movement and efficiency are preached throughout baseball. We want to get as much out of your arm as we can. Wins do not matter. They do not matter in Cy Young voting. They do not matter in contracts. Wins do not matter. There's not going to be a ton of guys that get even 200 wins, let alone 300 wins in their career. So before you even get into the all-time elite relieving numbers of Dennis Eckersley, where he won a Cy Young and MVP as a dang closer, Dennis Eckersley as a starting pitcher was well above league average. And he may not have made the Hall of Fame as a starting pitcher, but he would have been remembered as a dang good one. And that's what I wanted to highlight here today before we get into his relieving numbers is the fact that in his seasons as a starting pitcher, he had an ERA under 4. He threw 100 complete games, pitched 2,496 innings, and he struck out 1,627 batters as a starting pitcher. Will career 111 ERA plus as a starter. Okay, as a starter. Now, if you look at him then the second half of his career to say, what did he do differently when he became a reliever? Now, as a reliever in the end, it was about the saves. He dropped his ERA about half a run, 318 career, 293 saves in 530 games. So basically 3/5 of the time he pitched as a reliever, he earned a save. And in those 543 innings of dominance, he struck out 536 batters. So he went from a guy who was striking out a probably 2/3 percentage of innings to batters to a one strikeout per inning guy. And that's a huge jump. The half run in the ERA is a huge jump. But this is a guy that has nearly 200 wins as a starter and nearly and over 300 saves as a closer. Absolutely bananas. And a guy that just doesn't get enough love in the history of the game for how great of a player he was. Now, if he stayed a starting pitcher his whole career, he would have been remembered by the fans of the teams he played for as a quality arm, as a guy who took the ball every fourth day, as a guy who was able to strike out guys and do his thing. But he became a legend. He became a Hall of Famer when he switched to the bullpen and became one of the best closers to ever live. So on this date, the pitching journey for Dennis Eckersley began as he won his first game in 1975. Congratulations, Eck, on a heck of a career. I loved listening to you on the Red Sox broadcasts for many years. True legend of the game, true baseball man, and someone that should be celebrated and respected, I believe, even more so than he is now, because people look at relievers and they're like, there's Mariano Rivera, and then there's a huge drop off to everyone else. And you can say that for the pure closers. But when you look at a guy like Dennis Eckersley, who was successful as a starter as well as a dominant reliever, if Dennis Eckersley closed his entire career, extrapolating what he was able to do, he would have been right up there in the saves category and in the GOAT reliever talk. But instead, he spent 12 years being an above average league pitcher who had a lot of potential and was used later on as a reliever. John Schmaltz gets a ton of credit for being a guy that has over 200 wins as a starting pitcher and over 150 saves. Dennis Eckersley, to me, being just below 200 and well over 300 is even more impressive. Now, there's a big question for my 2024 American League MVP pick, Juan Soto, who has been absolutely crushing it, by the way. I didn't have a lot of bragging to do when it came to Juan Soto and Mookie Betts as my MVP picks because they were safe. I didn't go out on a limb picking these guys to win MVPs. But Juan Soto so far this season, 2.7 WAR in 200 at bats, 64 hits, 14 home runs, and he's batting .315. This is one of the best young hitters we will ever see. He leads the league in games played. He leads the league in hits. He leads the league in plate appearances, and his 35 walks in 53 games is well on pace for him to be up there for the lead league in walks. 14 home runs already. He hit 35 last year. He's got 40 home run potential this year. And Juan Soto is truly one of the most scary at bats in baseball. And the fact that he's only 25 years of age, just a little bit older than your boy, it is really awesome to watch him play the game of baseball. 10 doubles. This is a guy who's hitting 300, slugging over 400. On base is over 400, and slugging is over 500. So he has the 300, 400, 500 slash that you like to see in your video games. His OPS plus for the year so far is 178, and he leads the league with 118 total bases. Absolute dominance. So the question is, what do you pay this guy? Because I know the discussion were that he was looking to beat Mike Trout and potentially be the first $500 million player. And while Mike Trout, when he signed his big extension, was a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more valuable in terms of WAR, he was not the hitter that Juan Soto is. So those things almost even themselves out. So Juan Soto, worth around $500 million until Shohei Ohtani comes along. And while there are deferrals and the actual value is not $700 million, Shohei Ohtani signed for $700 million on paper. Now, there's talks about Juan Soto wanting to be as close to $600 million as he can be, because Shohei Ohtani, even though he is a two-way player, his pitching future is unknown. And right now he leads the National League in WAR as a DH. So Juan Soto's hitting value can be extrapolated to being similarly worth what Shohei Ohtani's is. And you could argue that Juan Soto is actually a better hitter than Shohei Ohtani in just terms of his approach, his eye. He's way more patient. He earns more walks, strikes out a little bit less. So Juan Soto went from saying, oh, I want to pass Trout and be the highest paid player in baseball at around $500 million to Shohei's making $7 million. I got to be close to $6 million. Who's going to pay that? Now, there's been a lot of talk about the New York Yankees not letting him out of New York, and I don't think they should, as much as that would pain me to see this Soto Judge 2 combo for the next decade. As a Red Sox fan, it would be very depressing. They shouldn't let him leave. This is a truly generational talent. But the Yankees are currently paying Garrett Cole a boatload of money. They're currently paying Giancarlo Stanton a boatload of money, and Aaron Judge as well, not to mention all the other contracts of guys that they have lying around that are not helping them sign that $500 to $600 million check. And Steve Cohen and the Mets have been named as someone. And while they've shown that they're willing to spend money, their team is kind of a mess right now. And obviously, even if Pete Alonso is a fan favorite, you let Pete Alonso walk to sign Juan Soto. Where does that bring the rest of your team? The Jeff McNeils and Brandon Nimmo's of the world and guys like that. Is that enough to put around Soto to really turn the team around and turn that $500, $600 million investment into money well spent? I do not know. The Dodgers have been playing incredible, just tax numbers, kind of NFL salary cap economics. Will the Dodgers, after having an offseason where they spent well over $1.5 billion in players, will they come out next year and say, hey, if nobody's going to pay Soto what he's worth and try to lowball him, we're going to come in with the best offer. And if we have to do deferrals and find different ways to get him the money so we can keep building this thing, having Juan Soto, Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, and Freddie Freeman in the same lineup would be insane. But outside of those 3 teams that have been named, where is the actual answer. Is one of these three teams realistically going to pay Juan Soto what he's worth / what he wants? And Juan Soto has came out publicly and said he is not going to turn any team away. I can tell you something right now. These teams that are under $100 million in payroll, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Oakland Athletics, they're not going to be Miami Marlins. They're not going to be in there. They're not going to even be willing to throw out half of 600. They're not going to be able to give them 300. But the other 20, 25 teams should be, and I hope will be, willing to give Juan Soto somewhere between Trout's contract and $600 million. If Juan Soto has less than 10 offers on the open market, and yes, he is going to hit the open market even if the Yankees give him an offer in that range. If there's not 10 plus offers for Juan Soto, these teams just are being run terribly. Because this is a guy who you're paying for his prime, his age 26 through 36 seasons. And with the eye he has, he could hit till he's 45. So affording Juan Soto is going to be difficult. There's already been talks about the Yankees maybe not having enough money and the Mets being a mess of a situation, and the Dodgers, they just spent so much money last offseason. Will they do it again? But whether it be teams like the Giants and the Phillies and the Red Sox, like there needs to be 10 plus offers in Juan Soto's inbox this offseason, because a player like this that has the combination of ability and age has not hit the market in a while. That's a big part of the reason why we saw Yoshinobu Yamamoto become the highest paid pitcher in baseball history, because he came over in his prime years without any draft compensation attached to him. Juan Soto, no disrespect to Yamamoto, is more valuable as an everyday player and is also a proven major league stud. If he can't get multiple teams offering him $500 to $600 million, I don't know what you're holding the money back for. To sign a couple arms, to sign a Pete Alonso on the open market, that's what you're going to save the money for? You know, you only get a Juan Soto on the free agent market once. He's not going to hit open market again. Teams have had the ability to trade for him, but this is your opportunity to get one of the greatest hitters of the modern era on your baseball team. Do everything you can. I appreciate Orlando, Scott, everyone in the chat that joined me this Saturday. I hope you guys enjoy the long holiday weekend. I know for me personally, it's coming at the perfect time. Love the cookouts, the beach, the warm weather. It's beautiful out today. We got a lot of baseball to enjoy and a lot more to recap. I'll be back next week with my May recap, changing up the jerseys on the side and getting into the dog days of summer here in the baseball season. Appreciate you guys as always, and I will catch you guys next Solo Shot Saturday. Peace.